Sam Wims. He's the fellow out on the beach running that big equipment up and down and cleaning the seaweed. Sam, thanks so much for coming over to talk to us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I understand you've been on the beach a long time.
Yes.
How many years?
42 years.
42 years?
Yes.
So you've seen a lot of seaweed in 42 years.
Yes, I have.
And is this normally the time of year that it comes in?
Yes. Yes. Around about May, you get a large deposit of seaweed on the beach.
In May it comes in. The reason what? The weather changes or what kind of brings it?
Yeah, the weather, due to the weather.
And then when does it kind of go away and leave us alone?
I say around that cold time, like around October, November.
Oh, so it's with us all summer.
Yes.
And do you clean it every week, every day? How often do you clean the beach?
Well, we clean the beach every day here at Crandon.
At Crandon Park every day. So you're out at what, early in the morning? Or
6:30 in the morning till sometime 3 in the afternoon.
Whoa. And then what do you do with all that seaweed?
Well, I like to re-nourish the beach with it.
Well, that's good. So when you say re-nourish, how do you re-nourish a beach?
Well, when I come across washouts, I take it and I, put it in the washouts, and I take sand, clean sand, and I top it off with clean sand.
Oh, you mix it together. That's
Yes.
wonderful. So then that takes away the smell too a little bit, doesn't
The
it?
smell is like a filter, a natural filter, the sand. It just filters out all the stench and everything. It dries out, and it also builds the beach.
It gives that sand a little something to hang on to. What's the year that you had so much seaweed you didn't know what to do with it? Can you remember in 40 years? This is 2012. We'll go back to the 70s.
Well, every year about this time, you get a large deposit of seaweed.
Oh, right at the beginning?
Around about May, every year. And then you have about 4 different seaweeds. You have one look like hair, then you have one look like kind of like hay, and then you also have one with berries on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then toward the end, and it's a little bit less on the beach, is that it?
Yes.
So would you say this year is, I know up in Palm Beach and in Broward County, they think they're having a bonus year. Are we having a bonus year down here too, or is it about average?
About average. Like I say, around about May, this time, every year I notice, like as the weather go to cooking up, like hurricane season, we get a large deposit in the beginning. Now, I don't believe we'll get no more.
So like you're saying at the beginning of the season you get the most?
Around about May.
Well, you know your seaweed. You've been out there a long time checking on it.
The machine, I think, carries about 15 yards. And I mainly try to pick up the seaweed, not so much sand, but I want to integrate it too with sand.
Right.
So when I put it in the washhouse, it kind of like firms it. And when I put the sand on the top, you might ask me, where's the seaweed? And I say, oh, you're standing on it.
Oh, okay. So you put a layer, you dig up the seaweed, and then what? You take it to a special place?
Well, yes, a washout.
You call that the washout?
Yes.
And is that like an area that you call the washout?
When nature washes out the beach.
Oh, yeah, I know what that is, sure. So like it's a natural place that you put it?
Yes.
And then you put the seaweed, and then you put a
build it
layer of sand on top of that?
Yes.
And then you just pile it up?
Yes, and grate it off.
And then nature just naturally compresses it down?
That's right. The elements just take over.
Well, because of you, we have a beach. So, so I have to say thank you very much for giving us the beach here at Crandon Park.
Yes, and thank you.
Well, we appreciate your 42 years of service. Who knew this man is here making a beach for us on Crandon Park? Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure, Sam.
Anytime. Yes, I want to show you how it operates. Got it. See again. In here. You see here? This motion here.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Sweeps it in this hopper here, and that's how it loads it out.
It's like a big rake, isn't it? It's like it's raking up the seaweed?
Yes. Okay, it also reverses.
Sometimes that's important if you get a big pile.
Yes, and it also dumpeth. The bottom slides back.
That's quite a contraption.
Yes. You can grade, you can cut, You can fill, you can haul, you can do it all.
It's one-stop shopping.
Yeah, one-stop shopping. Guys, this is a washout. When we have the heavy rain and the beach overflow, what it do, it breaks out at the lower point. And the lower point was in this area right here. Maybe about 5 feet. It just washes out in an area maybe from maybe 20 feet across. It just tears out water. The water breaks out when the heavy rain comes on the beach. And they don't have no way to get out. And the lower point, it just breaks out. Just take all the sand out. So what I do, I take the seaweed and I start at the point. Where we standing is like easterly. So I lay a seaweed there, and then the next load I lay a seaweed there, and I just go back and forth, like sew it back in. And then what I would do now, I would take clean sand.
Because I'm looking at this. This
Yes.
is a beautiful beach. I never
Thank
know there
you.
was seaweed in here.
Yes,
This
yeah.
is amazing.
Yes, this is seaweed.
It's
Do you smell anything?
no, it smells
Okay,
beautiful.
all right.
I'm gonna pick it up.
Okay.
This is beautiful stuff.
Yes. A period of time, look at that. I had a handful of seaweed here.
Yeah.
Look at it. Look at it.
Oh yeah, it's just dust.
Yes.
It's just dust.
Yes.
Now, is this normally a washout for you?
No.
This one just happened.
Yes, that's the way nature, nature controls, wherever it's gonna break out.
So a washout will be different places on the beach.
Yes.
So when you come through in the morning, you see this as a washout. You say, "Aha, that's where I'm going to dump it."
That's where I'm gonna dump it.
And it's amazing to me how it breaks it down. There's no smell at all.
Okay. No smell, right?
No, none,
Okay.
none.
Yes.
And the
yes.
birds like it too.
Yes, the birds like this area too. This area here in front of me is seaweed, and to my right is broken down seaweed. 95% sand. Sooner or later, be 100% sand, and I'll be able to put it back out on the beach
Well, do you ever find an old shoe or something like that in the seaweed?
once in a while. I go one there. Look at that. There's an old shoe.
How long's that been out in the ocean?
Ah,
A long time.
yes, we'll never.
Do you think they want it back?
Nah, not this. Not this one. No.
So does that get composted in, or does that get in the trash?
Well, it's supposed to be trash. Trash. We don't put seaweed like this. This don't break down like seaweed. This,
Oh, the plastic doesn't break down.
No, not as quick as the seaweed.
I'm here now with Christopher Hernandez. You're the park manager of Crandon Park. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Well, I wouldn't say I'm the park manager. I'm one of the few managers that help run this facility. But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. And this is a great segment. And a lot of people don't put too much thought into this. And most people that come out to the beach, they're just coming to enjoy a little bit of paradise. Seaweed is just something that gets in the way between people having a good time and really appreciating the beach. There's a whole lot more that goes into this whole seaweed process than what most people think. Seaweed is obviously natural. In most beaches, like here in Crandon, seaweed gets in the way, and so most people don't associate it with it being natural and something that's important that should be left. It's something that looks ugly.
And it smells.
It smells, and so they want it out of the way.
Right.
And so in order for us to maintain that quality of our beach, there are portions of our beach here at Crandon where we do remove the seaweed and we store it right here where we're standing now.
And this is amazing. This is a nice big pile. It's up pretty high. How many layers do you think you have here?
Well, this has been going on for years, and the good thing about this is that this pile here is not going to get much higher than what we're looking at right now. Because of the natural processes, this stuff breaks down very easily, and so it doesn't just accumulate year to year. There's a process where it breaks down. Sometimes the pile's a little higher, and then other times it's really low. So this is about average right here. You'll never see this get higher than what we're looking at right now. But when we have storms and we get washouts, the currents come in and wash out areas of the beach, we take what we have here and we use it to fill in.
Oh, so you're always building up your beach. You're never losing any beach.
That's right, constantly. We're constantly monitoring our beach and making sure that in areas where we've lost a significant amount of sand, we're filling it back in, and that's important in order to maintain our beach.
It's almost like a repair daily. We do this 7 days a week.
This is a seaweed.
Yes, and you see this here?
Yeah, this is more brown. This is kind of old.
Okay, you see this here carries the berries. See the little berries? Okay, and you see this one here? That's
Yeah.
a seaweed. So you have 3 different seaweeds here.
Oh, you're right. Like you were telling us, they're different ones.
Yes. Now this is the one you get around about this time of year.
Oh, so it changes. We don't get the same seaweed every day.
No, different months.
So in May, when we get the
Yes.
big ones that come in, it's this one.
Yes.
Okay, Chris, you're going to have to come in and tell us on this. What is this that Sam is showing us?
Well, that's exactly right. What people refer to as seaweed is really a combination of things that get washed up on shore. There is a seaweed in there, and that's sargassum. So that's the bulk of what we find on our shoreline. And this is obviously a very degraded, dried up version of it. Most people know it from the really fluffy type seaweed with little air sacs, and kids love to grab that stuff and shake it in their buckets to see if they can find little shrimp and crabs.
Yeah.
So that's the seaweed there. That is a sargassum seaweed. It's actually a brown algae. Now, inside what most people call seaweed, there's a whole lot of other things as well. And Sam was alluding to that by saying that there's different types. Well, believe it or not, the different types that he's referring to actually are not seaweeds per se. They're actually sea grasses. They're flowering plants just like you'd find on land, but they grow underneath the water.
Oh.
Sea grasses are very important to a lot of marine animals out here. The names of the grasses are actually referred to depending on the animal that feeds on them. So we have turtle grass, which obviously sea turtles feed on. We have manatee grass, which manatees feed on. And then we have another type called shoal grass. Those are the 3 most common sea grasses that are found on the shoreline, washed up as part of what people call seaweed.
So the seaweed is really a grass, and when it's on our beach, it's a weed.
Well, I guess you could say that. It just all depends on what you're looking at. But we do have a true seaweed, which is their sargassum, and then we have sea grasses that are mixed in that they get lumped into that common names. They're very different. They're very easy to tell apart. And we'll go out there and take a look and show the viewers what we're talking about.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Great. So what you're seeing here is a series of sand dunes that we've established out here in the park in order to protect our beach. Sand dunes, of course, are something that naturally occurs on beaches, but over time, because of development of our shorelines, we've removed. Obviously now, we've realized the importance of sand dunes on beaches, and so we've reestablished them. So what you're seeing behind us here is a series of recreated sand dunes that we've established. An important thing to mention is that in order for us to establish these dunes, the sea oats, which are the plants that you see on these dunes, require a nutrient base. And so in other words, they need fertilizer. We don't use any artificial or synthetic fertilizers on the beach. So what we do is with this, the seaweed and seagrass that's collected along our shoreline in order to keep our beach clean, we bring in that seaweed. It's actually a mixture of seaweed and sand that gets put in on the ground, and it forms the base that will provide the nutrients for these recreated sand dunes.
So it's a natural fertilizer. It's
It
just
sure
a
is.
natural thing that happens in nature.
That's right.
I love it. So you're not bringing anything foreign to the beach. And look at these beautiful plants that you have.
Yeah, it's amazing. Once these plants get put into the ground, it's amazing how nature takes over, and it really doesn't need a lot more than just sunlight and water, and they just take over.
Okay, now the sea oat, how does that add to the beach? Is it good for the animals, the birds? What is this good for the beach for?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people don't really realize how important this particular plant species is. It's not only important because it helps stabilize the dune, But once the plants have become established, it provides a really important habitat for a variety of species that depend on the beach as their habitat. So not only do shorebirds find refuge in the sea oats during storms and during times of high wind, but it also creates a refuge for small animals that may be found on the beach, like beach mice or sea turtle hatchlings when they hatch, or land crabs. So the sand dunes are very important. Once they've been reestablished on the beaches, it's important that people stay away from them. The sea oats don't do too well when they get trampled on,
right.
when they get, stepped on. So it's important that when people see these formations on the beach, that they walk around them. Like I said, it's a refuge. It basically is a refuge for wildlife. The functionality it has for us humans is that it basically helps maintain the beach. It prevents erosion. So where you would have a beach that wouldn't have sand dunes in place, and you'd have a lot of erosion of sand, and you'd have to come back in to reestablish the beach with renourishment projects, the sand dunes do all the work for us. It really helps save a lot of money. During times of high wind, that sand gets blown up and it gets caught right here. So it's basically a natural catchment system for the sand.
And it looks pretty too.
It sure does. Yeah, well, this part of the beach here is a secondary storage area that we have. For purposes of efficiency, this northern extreme of the beach is so far away from our main storage area that it requires for us to deposit some of the collected seaweed here. Now, just right behind us is the start of what we call the Bearcut Preserve. It's a 264-acre preserve of a natural barrier island ecosystem. This here is considered our beach trail. It is open to the public, so people that want to experience what a natural beach looks like can come through and walk along this shoreline and see what a natural beach looks like.
So when you say a natural beach, you're saying that you've done nothing to it. There's been no cleanup, anything like that. You just let whatever happens, happens.
That's correct. We let nature take its course. The seaweed washes up, it stays on the sand, and right beyond this, what is called the rack line where the seaweed is located, we have a natural sand dune.
And now I'm here, it's a beautiful day, there's a nice breeze. I don't smell anything, so you're saying nothing was done to the seaweed and all that smell just went away?
Well, you will have some smell, and as we venture into the natural beach, you will notice that there is a bit of a smell, and it really just depends on the tides, how fresh the seaweed is, or how long it's been sitting out on the beach. Typically, the longer that it sits and it starts breaking down is where you get some of the stronger smells. Fresh seaweed doesn't have much of a smell to it. It doesn't produce the gases that decaying seaweed has.
Right. Well, it makes sense. If I have an old head of lettuce, that starts to smell after a while. So we're going to walk down the beach and see what we can find. We're going to see a natural beach on Crandon Park. And where do you get the sand from that you put on top of the seaweed that you build in your bunkers over there?
Mostly against the sea walls when it deposit heavy, and I just take it from the sea walls and put it back out on the beach.
Oh, so you take it from your own beach and put it back on?
No, the sea wall now.
Oh, the seawall.
Yes.
Okay, where's the seawall?
The sea wall, next to the road, the road that's traveled along the beach side.
Yeah.
When the wind blows the sand there upside the road, I
got it.
removes it and brings it back to the beach.
Got it. But it's basically your own sand that's been blown away, I guess.
Yes.
And it's caught on that seawall.
Yes.
What we have here is sargassum seaweed.
This one, sargassum.
This is sargassum seaweed. You can see it's a little bit darker than what it normally is when it first washes up. This has a yellowish green to orange coloration to it, and once it washes up and starts drying out, it starts turning brown to dark brown. So this is sargassum seaweed. Now, mixed in with what people generally call seaweed, we've got a whole other set of things going on, and this is what we have here. So we'll drop that.
Okay.
And so what you're looking at here is actually not a seaweed. This is a sea grass. It's a flowering plant, just like the grasses that you have in your lawn. Little grass here that sort of looks like spaghetti is manatee grass.
This is the manatee grass.
That's manatee grass.
How far out does this grow in the water?
Well,
If I look out there, how far out do you think the manatee grass would be?
well, manatee grass and turtle grass all grow real close to shore, and they can grow, for several miles offshore. What's important is that they receive enough sunlight to be able to grow. So you will not find seagrasses in waters that are too deep for sunlight to penetrate.
Well, that makes sense. In more shallow water, we get the seagrass. Okay.
That's correct. But sometimes they can be found miles offshore. And if you look out on the beach and you look at the water, typically the darker areas of the ocean is where you see the seagrasses growing. Now, mixed in with this, we also have turtle grass. And let's see if we can find a piece here. I have a very small piece right here. All right.
Oh, the flatter one is the turtle grass.
That's right. The flat bladed grass sort of looks like a ribbon. This is turtle grass, and obviously this is sea turtles feed on this.
So you call it turtle grass because this is your food. For the large turtles or the baby turtles, which turtle, they all eat it?
Yeah, well, mainly the adults. Mainly the adults. This is a little bit too big for some of the smaller hatchlings.
I'm sure it's about as big as a hatchling, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So adult.
And then this one is
That's manatee grass.
manatee grass. Do the manatees eat this?
They sure do.
Ah, okay. And that's important for them to have this grass out there. That's a food store. That's a grocery store.
Yeah, that's right. Most people don't realize that this stuff that washes up, before it washes up, is really important for marine life. When it's out in the water growing underneath people's feet, it provides not only a home for a variety of marine life, but is also a food source for these larger marine creatures like sea turtles and manatees. I have mainly turtle grass in there, but you also have a little bit of manatee grass, and then mixed in with that you have the sargassum.
Now that looks pretty solid to me. I walked along the beach the other day and there were some big clumps of it, and I tried to kick it and it was like kicking a big bale of hay. Is this about the same?
Yeah, that's right. It's about the same. This stuff is already decomposing and degrading, and it's very dry, so it starts getting compacted, and you've got a little bit of sand in there, and that's what gives it the weight, and it becomes real heavy.
Okay, and so in this section of the beach, you're saying that Crandon Park doesn't do anything. You leave it natural.
Yeah, that's right. This area that we're standing in is part of the Bearcat Preserve. This area is untouched. It's not manicured. It's not maintained. It's left as nature intended it to be. So. And that's very important. We want to make sure that we leave a little bit of our beach natural in order to preserve wildlife, in order to preserve the integrity of what this ecosystem is.
I think that's wonderful because when you walk along the beach, one is beautiful for bathing, but the other one, it looked like, oh, the possibilities along this beach.
Yeah, that's right. And for those that, for nature enthusiasts, those that like to observe nature, coming down this beach trail, it's very visible how much a natural beach contributes to wildlife. A lot of variety of shorebirds are found along this beach here, feeding not only in the sand flats offshore, but also along the shoreline amongst this seaweed.
I know some of those shorebirds, you can barely see them, that they just blend into the sand.
Yeah, they sure do.
Talking about sand, I've been in different places. I've been blessed to be different places in the world, and some of the sand is very soft and powdery, and others is like there's pebbles and rocks. What makes up our sand?
Well, that's interesting that you asked. The sand that we have here on Key Biscayne is very different than what you find in Miami Beach. Our sand is actually very fine, and it's a combination of things. It's composed of quartzitic sands. In other words, small fragments of quartz, and there's also fragments of shell in there. So it's a combination of two things. And so if you pick up a clump of our sand, you'll notice that it sort of glistens, and those are the pieces of quartz in there.
Oh, it's the quartz that I'm seeing.
That's right. What you see reflecting back, glistening, and the sunlight is the pieces of quartz. And historically, the origin of this sand is from as far away as the Appalachian Mountains.
The Appalachian Mountains, whoa.
That's right. As those mountains erode over time and the rivers carve out those mountains, sediments from those mountains get washed down the rivers and out into the ocean. And with the ocean currents, they get brought down here to Key Biscayne. And that's actually how Key Biscayne formed. It started off as a small spit of land, small sandbar. And over time, it was built up with these sands that were being brought down with the currents from as far up as the Appalachian Mountain.
That's amazing. Who knew that? I mean, there's something so fascinating on the beach. You just have to get a little bit below the surface. Sargassum, now that's an unusual name for me. Where did they get the name, and how did that all come about?
Well, sargassum gets its name from the Sargasso Sea, which is located in the North Atlantic. And it really isn't a sea that's bounded by land. It's actually a portion of the North Atlantic that's bounded by ocean currents. The Gulf Stream is one of the currents that bounds that Sargasso Sea. In the center of those currents, this seaweed actually gets concentrated and it's found in very large, extensive floating mats. Those currents provide a very tranquil, stable environment where the sea is very still, and so it allows for that seaweed to grow and then stay in one location.
Oh, so then that vegetation starts up there and then it works its way down here? Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct. During storms and during strong currents and winds, fragments of that breaks off and it washes in on currents.
So the wind comes from that direction. Maybe that's why May is so important. When the wind comes from that direction, it brings in that sargassum weed. Yeah,
it all sort of ties in together when we have the seasons where we have higher winds. The higher winds allow for some of those clumps to break off and get blown up in our direction, and they wash up on our shore.
And the sargassum, it gets pretty wide, doesn't it? I mean, it's not a little narrow strip. I've seen it out there, and I went fishing one time, and it seemed like it was several miles long.
Yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, in winds, fragments of that that mat of floating seaweed. If you read back in history, you'll find that when Christopher Columbus was sailing across the Atlantic, they say that he encountered these long stretches of floating sargassum and mistook that for land. He thought that he had arrived on land.
It was that big. Well, I saw little turtles on the one I saw, and there must have been a couple of hundred baby turtles, and so that was kind of exciting. Well, Christopher, I want to tell you, thank you so much. And Sam, I want to thank you. You're a jewel for explaining all this to us. We always see the seaweed, and knowledge is king. We never knew. We just thought, oh, it's just an irritation on the beach, but realize how important it is. So thank you again. And we've learned a lot, and thank you for watching. This is Terry, Adventures in Nature.